So don't worry about breaking the branch. It will heal. Nature is wonderful. That's how trees survive for millennia. So don't worry about it. Hi, I'm miltonchang of Bonsaiheirloom. It's a beautiful day. Bougainvillea is blooming beautifully, and you can see the miniature roses. These are all water ones. I got that little, and now they're pretty good size. My videos are very well received this week, so I thank you for watching. And then many compliments, very few questions about from the comments. So here are a few. So let me get to the questions right away. The first one was that I have a collected beech tree from the wild, and it's about around 1 inch in diameter in circumference at the bottom, and it's about 19 inches tall. So he sent me 4 photos and what to do, and this particular photo is clearer, so I will use that photo as the illustration. So there are 2 possibilities in the sense of turning this into a bonsai. One is just to cut it clearly to the bottom, cut off all the growing branches to 6 or 8 or 10 inches, depending on the ultimate height you want it to be. And then it will grow out, it will branch on the bottom, and then you start over again. And you start with a thicker branch, so that's good. And then you let the bottom branches grow out farther so that the branch thicken and to look more proportional to a mature tree. The bottom trunks are thick and the top is thin. And then the other possibility is cut it right above or below above the small branch that came up. And you can also cut the short branch, a small branch, so that it will branch out below the short branch. And then you can actually tilt the tree a little bit so that the small branch is pointing up. That becomes the apex, or at least it had a turn in the tree, took it this way and took a turn and then branching out. So there are a lot of options when you get a sapling. The next thing is I see you cut them redundant branches during almost any time of the year. Can I cut them during the summer? Well, actually I cut them all year round because I'm doing video all year round. Ideally is I would like to cut it in the winter months so I can see where the branches are going, and then let it grow out, abundant grow out, and wait till the leaves drop again next winter, next fall, and then I cut it again when I could see where I'm going. Well, that's the quickest way to thicken the branch and nurture the tree, grow the tree. But on the other hand, it's okay to cut it during the summer because after you cut it, it will branch out. And if you cut it every 2 or 3 months, you have a lot more ramification a few years down the road rather than cutting once a year. So everything's a balance. There's no right or wrong way. You cannot hurt the tree because it's your tree, and either way it will survive and it will compensate by its natural growth. So you can do no wrong. Again, I emphasize that to make it bonsai easy to practice hobby. And this guy loved my video, and he has a ficus and kept small. But what do I do when the branches gets really long? Well, cut it off. I mean, right? You cut off about the node, then everything below the node will branch out. And I might add the following: it's growing long branches. It's quite possible that it has a little bit more shade than it likes. So it's living in the shade, and they send out long, narrow, thin branches. But if you keep it in the full sun and water a lot, be sure don't let it dry out. The branches are going to get a lot thicker, and the tree will grow a lot faster and healthier. Is it possible to bend a 4-inch all around tree branch to shape it? Well, I can see a lot of techniques like juniper. They would actually divide the branch so that it's more supple, and then put raffle around it and then bend it so that the bark is not peeled off. So by varying technique, you can bend very thick branches. I generally don't do that because a thick branch by definition is very long. It's out of scale. So I cut it so it will branch out. But one problem is that branch may not be in the right orientation, because a branch as it gets thick, it tends to bend down naturally due to the gravity. So I think it's actually much more natural to bend the branch down. And the technique I do is that I put my thumb somewhere along the branch, so when I bend it, it doesn't crack it, right? But the problem with that is that it's got a wimpy curve. So after I've done it, I probably cut it here to make the curve less accentuated. And one actually very good way to do it is that if you want the branch to go this way, what you do is you scar it here or at the angle opposite to where you want it to bend, and then you purposely break it. But this side is still connected to the bark, so it will survive. And in fact, this streak may die off, but this side will survive. That adds to the feature. So don't worry about breaking the branch and do it right, but it will heal. Nature is a wonderful, that's how trees survive for millenniums. So don't worry about it. Cutting, bending, wiring, tie cable, use a rod to pull it down, everything works. It's just the way that it works for you. It's about your 500-year-old Yamadori California juniper. I noticed you removed from the pot very carefully not to break the roots, and then you started cutting the roots. Why are you doing that? Well, that's a good question. The reason why I did that for two reasons. One is that to fit the pot. Sometimes there's a stiff root coming out, usually not much fibrous roots to the tip. So cutting off does very little damage. And the second reason for cutting off is, in fact, to reduce the length to induce fibrous roots. It's a little bit like you cutting off a big branch of a tree, then it have a lot more ramification. In this case, the ramification, in fact, is the fibrous roots, other fibrous roots. Do you know anything? Do you know of having a bonsai by window will hurt it? Well, yes and no. I think it's really good to be by a window because it gets enough light. And there are a couple of things you have to be a little careful. One is if the window is closed, right next to the windows could get very, very hot if it's a full sun. So keep the windows ajar so there's some air circulation so the trees won't get too cooked. The other one is that take a tree in that's growing in the full sun. But if you take a tree in from the shade, then the leaves will sunburn when they're exposed to the full sun. Aside from that, I think having an exposure to a natural window is actually, especially with the window somewhat open, it's a good idea. Do you have a video about those clippers and how you sharpen them? Well, first of all, I'm not sure I want to promoting brands, so I would say look at the shape of the tool and what it looks like roughly, and go to Amazon as a popular place to get it. You can also go Tmall or AliExpress to find the same kind of tools. Well, I tend to be a little bit cheap in a sense, practical and economical. So I look for good tools that are reasonably priced. I think the price is somewhat depending on the distribution channel and also on the cost of manufacturing. So if a company, like especially those in China now, they gear up in very large quantity production, and some of them with laser cutting and stamping, they're very cheap to make, so they're cheap. But if they use the right steel and sharpen it appropriately, they're just as good. And so I find the tools that are inexpensive, you can find tools under $20 for sure. Some of them may be a little bit too low, be like $5 to $10. So I don't bother to sharpen them when they are not good enough or parts of it break. I take it apart and use it for a knife for cutting bark and stuff like that. So anything that works. I don't think, I like some of the stainless steel bonsai tools. They are really well made. But anything other than that, I refuse to pay $100, $200 tools, which is really crazy. You break it all the same. I really need to try that moss powder that you talk about. Where do I get them? And I am from Belgium. Well, by the way, one of my good friends is living in Belgium. Moss are pretty similar. I think there are varieties, but I found there are similar varieties. So get the ones that you like, which also means that side of the road that doesn't look very long, so that it will look nice in a bonsai pot. Some of them grow long, which becomes a little bit of a hassle to shorten it. But what you do is you dry out, ideally in the sun, shade or partial shade or sun. Partial shade I think is the best. And then when it's kind of nice and crunchy dry, put it in a small blender like a bullet and blend it and dry it out a little further, and then you can spray it all over your bonsai. That looks very natural. So have fun. So the last question is why copper not good for plants in any way. I don't know. I don't know of any reason why copper is bad for plants. Of course, extreme example, too much copper may produce copper salt or something, I don't know. But I was also told to wrap strips of copper, raw copper, to put them around to discourage snails. So I don't know of any problem, but maybe if anyone of my audience had bad experience with a lot of copper, please let me know. I know in aquarium, we used to put copper to discourage snail growth, but I was told that's not so good for the fish either. But then fish are living in copper, not sitting next to some trees. So that's all for this week's Q&A, and thank you very much for watching. Please click like. That's my reward. That's my brownie point. That's my ego trip. And please subscribe to our channel and to get on to our website to get our mailing list for announcement when the trees are available, because quantities will be very limited. And I want my bonsai community audience to get it first. So thank you very much. Take care.